being joined right now by the president and CEO of Bridge Street Incorporated. He's been a production partner with Common, Imagine Justice, the California Endowment, and many others engaged in the California justice movement. He and his team have also served as executive producer and idea generator for large-scale events around the country, like the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's Mountaintop speech in Memphis, Labor Day music festivals in Los Angeles, the BET Experience, and the Obama Fest. Remember when all of us got together and rename Obama Boulevard? I'm talking about Martin Ludlow. Good morning.
Hey, Dominique. Good morning, Front Page family. How are you?
I'm blessed. How are you?
Feeling fantastic under the circumstances. But you just took me right back to that beautiful day. That was a great day in L.A., right on the intersection of MLK and Obama Boulevard. For those of you that were there and listening this morning, much love. Miss you. Can't wait to get back.
Everybody was there. Everybody in the community was there that day. Yeah, and we were all crowded together. We wasn't socially distanced at all. But yeah,
not at all.
Definitely miss those days. You also have a lot of expertise in the world of politics. You know, having served as a council member, worked on numerous campaigns and different initiatives. Including working with Mr. Al Gore. So you must be sitting back and just watching this transition, probably one of the most extraordinary transitions of power in our nation's history, not just because of the, attempted coup, but just because of the incredible contrast between these two chief executives.
Yeah, no, it's, first of all, I really appreciate you and always appreciate how you describe that career of mine. It is extraordinary. I think like everyone, every day is just, has been so surreal. Both in the multitude of hits that we're taking as a people, simultaneously. Any one of them, in and of themselves would have been enough, but we've just enduring so much. But yet, wow, what a testament to the human spirit. Goodness is prevailing over evil day by day. I know it doesn't feel like it some days, but overall, things we're coming up and out of one of the ugliest chapters in world history. I do think there's still more unfortunately, bad things yet to go through. These right-wing extremists are really, they definitely hit a new normal for them. It's much broader, but I think we all saw this coming, and many of us, you're in the top of that list, have really been on the forefront of reminding people that this kind of evil and wickedness is out there. We need to do things to root it out. And I think previous administrations have not risen to the level. And I'm very motivated and hopeful of what I'm seeing the Biden administration doing, not only in the types of nominees he's putting forward for cabinet secretaries, the way in which law enforcement at the national level seems to be maturing very quickly under a new president that they feel they can trust. So I'm very hopeful. And I think we all have to stay vigilant and stay alert and take these threats seriously. But we've also got to continue to move forward and live our lives.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you said, and I want to kind of have you talk about some basic stuff, because I think all of us are having this massive civics lesson, right? Because of the events of January 6th and just all of the shenanigans that the former president did to try to illegally hold on to power. But you said you think we'll see more from the extremists, from the right-wing extremists, the insurrectionists, the fascists, white supremacists, and we saw a warning yesterday from the FBI saying just that. I mean, they warned that, they said for the next several weeks, I don't know how it magically disappears after several weeks, that we could, see them emboldened by what happened on January 6th, and we could be looking at terror attacks across the country.
Yeah. So to your point, I think it's from what we've seen in the past, and I'm only sort of taking the to your point. I remember when I was on the city council, we went through a very difficult phase. I remember being briefed in a closed session on literal sites that Al Qaeda were targeting. And I saw the significance of the reach of the U.S. government, their ability to survey and look and monitor. And I think for so many years, this country has denied and has been so unwilling to ever acknowledge or even call white supremacist terrorists. And they just have shunned the term. It's almost like they haven't been willing to go there. But to see U.S. intelligence officials finally putting the term that ought to be put on this, as it is terrorism. That machine that can get up and move is impressive, it's massive, and it has far reaches. And I think as you begin to see some of these arrests happening with ringleaders, just like in any other international terrorist, tracking that we've done, there's a lot of truth to, if you cut the head off, you can kill the snake. And that's always been the path. That's the way it's worked. And I think that's the way in which law enforcement is moving. Alejandro Mayorkas, who many of you may remember, used to be the U.S. attorney here in Los Angeles, is a very innovative, creative guy, one of the best thinkers, and I think in law enforcement internationally, was just, tapped by the new president to become the head of Homeland Security. Hasn't been confirmed yet by the Senate. But trust me, he's being pulled in on a daily basis. Everyone in U.S. intelligence recognizes that he's coming in, and I think he's one of the best and the brightest in the world. And so I think it won't magically disappear, but I do think you're going to see some really significant movement. I think you're going to see arrests. You already see folks turning state's evidence. They're acknowledging that some of these guys are already informants. It's a masterful job of beginning to dissect it, go after it, and I do think you're going to see both a rise of the energy on the right, but you're going to also see a pretty significant response from responsible international law enforcement intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. There was a great article in the Nation, this guy, Eli Mistel, and I agree with him. He's saying, why aren't all 800 people that entered the Capitol being arrested and, at least charged? Why do we let them go? Is there, a racial double standard here? And, I hear people on CNN saying, well, we don't have the laws. There's no law against domestic terrorism. But there is a law against threatening elected officials. They're not just trespassing, right? And do we really need more laws that could criminalize African-American protesters when, which is what they'll end up being used for later? So I do feel hesitant to say, yeah, we need, national domestic terrorist laws, because I can already see what they would really be used for. And so I don't know. And plus all this talk of unity, it worries me that we're not, we're not going to do enough to cut the head off of that snake.
Yeah. Amen to that. That piece right there. I feel like this is the moment that Democrats have to show that they have the capacity to lead. We've always had the capacity to campaign our tails off with the best of them and get elected, and then frequently fail so miserably to go after it. And this kumbaya stuff is not what people are feeling right now. And I couldn't agree with you more. It's very interesting. There was a interview last night, and one of the CNN commentators was dissecting Biden's speech. And he was reminding people of something that I hadn't picked up in Biden's inaugural address. He actually said there needs to be enough of us who can agree on common ground. And that was an interesting statement to dissect, because I took it when he first said it. It went over my head. It was like, oh, no, not again. No, we're not going to unify with these these radical right-wing terrorists who killed 5 people and continue, and to your point, tried to kidnap governors and so forth. And he really did not say that. He actually did say there's got to be enough of us. And I'm hopeful, but I carry a heavy skepticism with you that our Democratic lawmakers are not going to go aggressive enough. I worry that there's just way too much white supremacy embedded in American law enforcement. So I think we're going through an unprecedented time. And the Kamala, hey, appreciate this is a moment. She's going to have one of the most extraordinary opportunities in American history to really begin to take the full the full depth of reimagining law enforcement from the bottom up in this country. And I think there's so much work to be done, and I carry that same concern that you do. So I think it's going to be a tough, bumpy ride here, but I see more signs of good than I do of bad, and I remain hopeful that that's going to prevail.
I mean, is there any chance that somebody like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was on Twitter advocating a bullet to the head for Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
Could she really be removed? I know that Representative Gomez is putting that out there, but I mean, to me, the fact that hardly any Republicans, only 5 Republicans were willing to say that it was legal to impeach a president who's no longer in office, it shows they're not going to vote to convict. To me, all 147 of the Republicans who voted against certifying the Electoral College votes should be definitely censured, if not kicked out of there. The so-called treason caucus, the people like Ted Cruz and the like, who actually incited and took or plotted or took part in this on whatever level, they should be kicked out of Congress. How can I unite with you if your plan is to murder me and take down my democracy? How can I unite with that?
Yeah, I think you're nailing it. Pelosi's got a work cut out for him. Pelosi, who's very gifted, capable legislator. This is your moment. It was a weird moment. I remember being so excited as the inauguration was happening, and I was thinking, okay, great. We got Congress, we got the Senate, and we got the White House. Please, Lord, keep all 50 Democratic senators in good health. And then all of a sudden, Patrick Leahy gets rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. I'm like, oh no. This is such a fragile moment, and I think that the aggressiveness of which she moved the articles of impeachment, and the aggressiveness of which the majority of Democrats, or the entirety of the Democrats in the House, didn't blink and went after the articles of impeachment, and the quickness of which they delivered it to the Senate. I think one thing that is really promising is the progressive left that is in Congress, largely led by women and women of color. They are keeping the pressure on. Karen Bass and others are pushing. And I think, we've just got to keep grinding. The Democratic National Committee, Democratic Party's got to get their act together. The DCCC's got to get their act together. These radical right members of Congress, we've got to find ways to launch voter registration. Because it's not, I get tired of hearing that, they're in solid red districts. Yeah, well, have we just written off poor white people that could be aligned with us? It's interesting. There was a moment not too long ago when a lot of the criminal justice reformists were realizing that when they polled, they were realizing that poor white people in Appalachian, Midwestern U.S. were completely down with bail reform. Because they were getting, Amos and others thrown into jail along with us and couldn't get out, couldn't pay their way out. And there's a lot of areas where I think we just step back and we concede that we can't do something. And I agree. This is the time where a grassroots campaign has got to really kick in. We've got to dive in areas that we may not have been willing to before. And I think the energy on the progressive left couldn't have come at a better time. I mean, Bernie and others who've been warning about this stuff, people are finally waking up and saying, you know what, he was right. So we've got to push as hard. I'm a football player, old school football player, and I'm just like, listen, I'm matching, energy with energy. I don't want to concede a yard. I don't want to concede a play. Let's get after it. And don't assume that we don't have more common ground with people who are dying from COVID, who are losing their families, who are getting locked up, or who are struggling to keep their, bread on the table. And let's take some of these fools out. And I think the congressmember that you mentioned, candidly, she needs to be arrested. I'm still stunned that she's actually walking into the building. But anyway, I think we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm heartened by the power and the energy of those on the left. And quite frankly, Black leadership. This is a moment in time. We've got to keep. We can't let the Black Lives Matters energy be overtaken by this craziness on the right. We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And, my theory, which is that, a lot of Democrats and almost all the Republicans say that the reason that Democrats have such slim margins, especially in the House, is because, they went too far left. And I think it's just the opposite. I think that Democratic convention chock full of Republicans and not embracing the incredible energy of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Like, you've got one wing with all these young people of color, people marching, and you're over here saying, well, we should have gone more with the old people that aren't doing jack. How does that make sense?
Exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. And look, hats off to what you've been doing. I mean, it's interesting. Front Page Family is the real voice of where people are in this country. And folks on this show, I listen to it all the time. So many of your listeners have been calling this stuff out for years. And, people were like, oh, no, you're crazy. And now it's all of a sudden like, it's mainstream thinking now. And, I'm with the plan to get after it. Let's get after it. And the pandemic is a factor in this that is really challenging. And, one would wonder what would it be like right now if we actually could get out and we actually could engage. This is a very, very challenging moment. I'm worried about the craziness of shutting down the state and then opening the state and shutting down the state and opening the state. And this thing, people are. This is a very challenging time for everybody. And I also want to send up some vibes of love and brotherhood and sisterhood and togetherness, because we really need each other. This is a tough time. Mental health challenges are so rampant. I think many of us, including myself, who normally are pretty solid, pretty able to battle through and weather through difficult times, challenging moments. I've been feeling the weight of it, and I know so many other people have, and it's just kind of like, man, which war do I fight? Do I fight the war in Congress? Do I fight the war of trying to keep my own family together and my personal psyche up? It's a brutal time. So sending up vibes of love to all the listeners, and you in particular, and your family and everyone. Just do whatever wellness methodologies you have. Keep yourself moving, keep yourself healthy. Take all these suggestions very, very, seriously, because we're living through an unprecedented time, and it's very challenging, and I think we just got to keep lifting each other up with love and unity.
Yeah, and I love your concept that we may have to make all of these changes and get through this without any Republicans in Congress, or maybe with just Mitt Romney. But but we still have the people. And one of the things that gives me hope is the fact that Republicans, regular people, are leaving the party by the thousands right now. That the January 6th, and I think we're just seeing the beginning of that, the January 6th events and this, the QAnon, the rise of QAnon and white supremacy as a mainstream phenomena is driving regular everyday Americans out of the Republican Party. And so maybe at some point that will push some of these, lawmakers who are such punks. I mean, they seem to be not just afraid of Donald Trump, afraid of his, not just literally afraid of getting beat up or killed by people, QAnon people and crazies, but also afraid of getting voted out if they, even hold people accountable who have literally committed treason. It's beyond comprehension. When we get back, I want to get your take on the impeachment. I want to get your take on, what our options are and what you see, what you see in 2024. Also, is the Biden agenda, what he's put forth so far, is it on point for the Black agenda? And what do we need to do to make it so, if it's not, or to take it a step further, if it is? We're talking with Martin Ludlow and you, 520-KJLH, 520-5554. That's the number to call. It's Radio Free, 102.3 KJLH. Talking with Martin Ludlow, the president and CEO of Bridge Street Incorporated. He's worked on all kinds of things, progressive causes in the production space, working with Common, Imagine Justice, the California Endowment, and more. I gave you a long list of things I wanted you to talk about. We would need another hour to cover all of that. So I'll give you your choice.
You left off climate change. And
climate change, Obamacare. But let's start. Well, I want to make sure you say whatever it is you came on the show to say today. But I think the issue of the Biden administration and the moves they're making and how it intersects with the Black agenda is top of mind for a lot of front page family. So how do you see that?
No, that's right. Again, first of all, just, Dominique, I'd be remiss if I didn't pause and just say, during this, since George Floyd was murdered and Breonna Taylor was murdered, your voice, your show has just been so powerful. I've seen leadership from all over the country come onto your show, respond to you whenever you call, and I just want to say that pushing the Black agenda, I don't know anybody whose voice has been bigger and louder and more poignant than yours, and so just really can't say enough about what you've done over this last year and a half, not to mention the last 16, 17, 18 years that you've been lifting us up here in LA. But with that said, this is an important time to keep the agenda going. Dr. Abdullah and Akili and everyone at Black Lives Matter have been doing just such an extraordinary job of putting their body and lives in harm's way for the good of Black people. Would be the first to probably correct me that I'm not aggressive enough on what I'm about to say, and they would probably be right. But, I think right now the pressure that we're putting on mayors and governors is so important. The president can only do so much. This is not a moment to let the pressure off of Biden either. But, when he signs his executive orders, to your point, providing access to resources for, getting people off the street. He's going to need effective mayors and effective governors to actually pick up the baton and get it done. It's like the last mile. His job is to provide the resources. The local leadership and state leadership have got to execute. And so now, we've got a grown-up in the White House. He's signing executive orders put there. I mean, just literally, you can imagine this amount of executive orders this guy's been signing, over the last couple of days to just undo all the damage that the Trump administration did. But now, come on, LA, we got to pick up the baton and go after it, and we got to stay aggressive. I do like the leadership that I'm seeing the president appoint. There's been some pretty extraordinary and unprecedented appointments. Secretary of defense, the United Nations ambassador. Quite frankly, having Kamala Harris as vice president, that was his choice. He picked her. And so I think he's putting some people, the woman who's heading up the COVID response task force, African-American female doctor, he's putting some key thinkers, Susan Rice and others, into place right away. So that's promising. That's promising. I think the executive orders on, expanding the Voting Rights Act, right on. Now we got to execute. I saw, although I haven't completely dissected it, an initiative in HUD that is expecting the new Secretary of Housing and Urban Development to carry to begin ending the racial inequities that have existed throughout America's housing system. That's a big one. That one ain't going to unfold fast, but wow, that's that one has a lot of power to it. I'd love to move on requiring the Department of Justice to cut ties with private prisons. That is a huge issue, just a moral and fundamental issue in this country, that nobody should be profiting off the incarceration of other people, but yet that's what we've done for centuries. And so I see some signs of really good stuff. Now, where the rubber meets the road in our daily quality of life, the housing, jobs, healthcare, just being able to keep our families together. We've got a long ways to go. Law enforcement, I think that one is a beast. You see, we get a reformist in like a George Gascon, and then immediately the deputy district attorneys start pushing back. So there's a lot of stuff that we've got to keep doing. And, kudos again to the Black Lives leadership and everybody who's been thrown down over this last year and a half. I think people are giving the president hopeful sort of pause to some extent. But we don't have time. We don't have much time to sit back.
Yeah. I was kind of, well, we talked about this, Susan Rice and her domestic portfolio. A lot of people were like, well, why, expecting her to be in sort of world affairs, but she seemed like she was all about the business in her presentation.
She had a crack team ready to go within about 15 minutes. And you dissect who she's putting together. These are folks with, years, decades of experience at the federal level. It's a crack team she's put together. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I agree with you.
No, this is kitchen table conversation. That's how we do it. We go back and forth. So that's all good. I mean, I didn't figure it out, but when I saw her there, I was like, okay, so there is definitely an advantage to someone who knows how to work the levers of power, trying to enforce a national agenda. Yeah. And it's interesting. What is often not even, we don't even really think about it, but it's even how the economy is changing, not just because of COVID, not just because of a Trump administration, but just the way in which, access to information, the internet, and, the gig economy, and how consumer demand is shifting, the way we want things delivered and provided, and stay-at-home independent workers. And, so much of the world is shifting. I think, for those of us in Black entrepreneurship, I think, as I talk to my colleagues who own their own companies and are trying to do startups,
I hear people that just feel completely besieged and overwhelmed by the amount of opportunity, and they can't move fast enough. We also struggle with access to capital. You listen to, conversations about folks trying to access financial institutions and being able to get funding for their local business. That is going to be a huge piece under this next path, because we've got to be able to bolster Black businesses. We've got to keep pressure on local hiring initiatives. We've come through some unprecedented levels of unemployment, underemployment. We've never been able to truly break through many of the glass ceilings that have been set up for us. So whoever's in the White House, sometimes there's a part of it that's just, it's a little esoteric, but I do think there are enough signs of forward proactive thinking in just these first couple of days